I read your book years ago, completely changed our whole perspective on
Yep.
the go where you're treated best. And it completely blew our minds. And now that's one reason why we're slow traveling
Hmm.
around the world right now is because of you. So it's all your fault.
Guilty. Yeah, I've realized, no place is perfect at everything, and you want to have some diversity in life. And I think the easiest way to kind of understand what the opportunities are is to be in different places. I think what you realize when you live in those different places is certain places are good for certain things, and you should take that for what it is. Singapore is a great place to store your assets, not a great place if you want affordable living. And I'm talking about we have people we work with who have $100 million who don't want to spend the money to buy real estate in Singapore because the taxes on the buy are incredibly high. Properties are incredibly expensive. The returns aren't there if you wanted to rent it out. But what a great place to store your assets and have access to capital markets. Take that for what it's good at, and don't try and be looking for the one place that answers all the questions. Try and look at it as a puzzle, and each piece needs to fit in somewhere. And that's what I've tried to do. I'm a big fan of tax neutral structures for at least one part of it. And I created what was called the tax friendly quadrant, where it's where are you as a person leaving? Where are you as a person arriving? Which, if you're an American, actually the one good thing about being an American is there's more flexibility if you don't need to be in the US on where you have to be. A lot of countries now really want you to be in one place, at least on paper, whereas the US still allows you to do the slow travel if your time in the US is minimal. So where are you arriving? Or where are you leaving? Where are you arriving? If you've got a business, where is that leaving? Where is that arriving? You've got to figure all four of those parts out. When you're an American, you almost want to have a tax neutral place to live because you've got that extra leg, which is the US is going to tax you. People don't realize if you're an entrepreneur, I mean, you can reduce your tax to anywhere between 0 and, let's call it 10%, all in 9, 10, 11%, something like that. So, I mean, moving overseas, running a business, an earned income, not a passive income, even if you're slow traveling, can work. And you can reduce your taxes by a third to a quarter, depending on what you were making in the US. Or sorry, by three quarters to two-thirds to three quarters. So by a lot, basically. I mean, get it down to 10% or less. If you're going to go and live in a place where they also have personal income tax, I mean, now it starts to be confusing. So for a lot of Americans, kind of being based in a place or slow traveling to where you're not liable for tax anywhere else is often the easier thing to do. And that's kind of why I came up with the trifecta way of living, where you spend three places 4 months a year. Because for a lot of Americans, if those places are emerging, like Albania, where you are, or Ecuador, you're probably not going to fall into their tax net, and you just pay the U.S. their 9, 10, 11%, or zero, maybe, depending on what you make. I mean, my thought in recent years is you have more countries cracking down on longer term slow travel. We've seen this with clients who get residence in Mexico, where it's technically a 180-day, visa policy for Western nationalities, but they were asking people even who were there for like 3 weeks, where's your return ticket? I mean, when I went the last time, it was like, I think they literally gave me 13 days. Other countries have done that. Malaysia, where Nomad Capitalist Live is for the second year this year, I think is much more open. They just want people to be there. But I think that in Thailand did the same thing. The UK has already done some of the same thing. I mean, some people want to do the more developed countries, the UK, or even Ireland, which is pretty friendly. I mean, you can't say I'm here for the full 90 days. They're like, don't you have a job, son? I'm like, what 90 days? What are you talking about? So I think that there's some countries that want it. Albania has been one that's been very friendly towards kind of digital nomads and putting stuff in place that if I hire someone in Albania, that's not going to create permanent establishment for tax purposes on my company. So like they're really trying to push that, but a lot of countries are kind of closing down.
That happened to us too when we went to Mexico. They gave us 3 weeks.
Yeah, 3 weeks.
Yeah, everyone says, "Oh, you could just show up and get 6 months," and that is
Not
not the
anymore.
case. No.
I like the countries that I call non-judgmental, like Singapore. I've used some like my most far-flung passport in Singapore. The guy just literally looks at the list. Is it there? Okay, great. It says 30 days. That's what you get. They just follow the law. In a
Okay.
judgmental country, maybe Mexico is a little bit like that. I think because the U.S. is pushing them. I don't think in most countries in the world they care.
Yeah, Ecuador, we're surprised. You get an automatic 90 days. There's no
Right.
passport
They
control
don't.
agent
Yeah.
deciding, okay, I think you deserve 5 and you deserve
Right.
15.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think Ecuador is one of the most, Ecuador and Malaysia are like two of the most open countries in the world for tourists.
Well, and we're huge fans of Ecuador. We
Yeah.
just absolutely love it. It's easy to get visas there too. They have so many different residency visa options.
Yeah.
And
So talk a little bit about the citizenship. We get a lot of questions about that, like that you can have dual citizenship, that we don't that we haven't given up our American passport. We would like to get another passport at some point. Talk a little bit about that for our audience.
You can have dual citizenship as an American, Canadian, Australian. And by the way, it could be dual, it could be multi, you could have 20 passports. Now, if you're American, you're always an American for tax purposes. You can't say, oh, I opened that bank account as a St. Lucia citizen. No, you're still an American. You still have the tax, regulatory, filing requirements, but you have more optionality. So there's a couple ways to do that. One of the most affordable things, and really the only a la carte service that we offer, is citizenship by descent. And so if you go back through your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, even further back in some cases, if you can meet certain criteria that depends on each country, they will give you that passport. It might take years, so it's not the fastest way to get it without moving, but it's pretty cheap. And it's a pretty good quality passport if you can be Irish or Italian or Slovak or Estonian. I mean, that's US equal level passport. And there are some countries in Latin America, which we generally talk about at our event, where they're more flexible on you having to live there or not. I know Ecuador used to be more flexible. Now they really want you to be there. But you can just get a residence permit. You can spend whatever the amount of time required is. Some countries it's 9 months. Some countries it might be 1 day. And you could just run out the clock. But then you have to be naturalized like everybody else. You've got to learn the language, which is one reason why I think like Ireland is not a bad passport to have, because you don't have to learn the language. You just live there, and they've got a tax-friendly program. You just naturalize the same way someone would naturalize as an American. You learn the Constitution, et cetera, et cetera. You wait the time. If you're in a hurry, there's various citizenship by investment programs, generally donation-based, $100,000 plus a healthy amount of fees and up, all the way up to like $1 million for a Malta passport, part of the European Union. When people say, why should I spend 15 grand to get my Estonian citizenship? Because I have people paying $1 million to get basically the same thing. Turkey has a program where you can buy real estate and you get citizenship. And if you buy it correctly and not from some scammy developer, in my experience has been, you can resell it after 3 years and not lose money. Who knows what the next 3 years will be. But like that's an interesting kind of alternative passport. If you're doing something like you're hiring 50 people or something, I mean, there's some countries where the president would love to do a photo op and give you citizenship. It gives you the optionality. Most people don't give up their US passport, but who knows what could happen.
I would love to hear what your new favorite country or your new hotspots are. I know you are a big fan of Ireland and Malaysia.
I came to Ireland 15 years ago for kind of personal reasons. And I think that Ireland and Switzerland are two countries where, number one, you can speak English. Like it's more comfortable in Ireland. Like I don't want to, I'm kind of cognizant, like you don't want to be the dumb American. You can go to Switzerland and you can always speak English and no one's going to be upset with you. But like I would kind of feel weird, like if I lived there, like going to the same coffee shop, like 20 times in a row, and they're like, you're not any better at speaking German or French than the last time. I would feel like I wasn't doing my part. So I think that Ireland and Switzerland are two places that kind of geopolitically, which I think is a bigger factor for me these days. I mean, they're not getting themselves into all the skirmishes, and I think there's going to be some real advantages to that. Ireland's a good passport to have. You can live in the UK if you're Irish. So it kind of gives you the EU plus the UK. So you've got optionality. It gives you more of the developed stuff, and you can speak to people in English. You know, I think that that's a part of the equation. For other people, they like Spain, and there's more tax-friendly countries in Europe than people are aware of. I mean, Spain can be relatively tax-friendly, Italy, Greece. You know, I think Malaysia is a very interesting place. I think from an investment perspective, I've been a big fan of Cambodia for 10 years. I'm looking at Nepal. I'm looking at Bangladesh. These are not places to live. Egypt, I still think, despite some of the geopolitical stuff, I think is very interesting. I think that Ireland has some of the most polite people in Europe that have enough of that kind of the good parts of the US without the government getting into some of the bad parts. Yeah, I think those are places that I like. I've been a fan of Eastern Europe. I think there's a lot of opportunity in Albania in the real estate sector and the hospitality sector. I think that part of the world is a place where you can just kind of go and be left alone. The government's not going to bother you, and you can just like do your thing, and they respect that, and they're not there to get in your way. So it really depends on what you want. I'm a city person. I look at where you guys were and I look at Southeast Ecuador and I say to myself, one of the best values for land, productive land in the world, by beautiful property down there near Loja. It's a bit of a game for me of what are all the things that can happen in the world and where would I want to adjust and what do I want to do. To me, there's just so many good places to go. I'm trying to think what else. There's so many places I like. I think Malaysia and I think Kuala Lumpur in particular is the best value. It's the best bang for your buck city in the world. English, great healthcare, nice people, multicultural, lots of good food, super cheap, currencies at a 26-year low, places to go. But I just think it's an incredible place. The culture is a little bit different though, and so it may not be a place that you want to go 12 months a year. Okay, I own a property in Malaysia, and it's comfortable for me. Like I haven't done it the way I want. After I kind of stopped with some of the slow travel, I said, okay, I need a little bit more space. I found I wasn't as productive in some of the pied-à-terres. So I went out and got a big property in a condo because some of those condos that are like 12 to 15 years old are a little bit out of vogue. I found they have like the greatest service. I'm like friends with my security manager. We WhatsApp when I'm not in the country. Like he helps me with stuff in a way that the sexy new buildings they would never help you. So I don't know why they're out of vogue, but they're big, 3 or 4 or 5,000 square feet. You can pay like half the price in some cases per square foot or per square meter that you would for some of the newer properties that are a third the size. And so I ended up buying that. I have no illusions that for the next 10 years, I'm having any capital appreciation on that property. I bought that purely as a lifestyle. So those are all good reasons why you'd want to live there. And you can live very affordably and you can get a property that is insanely cheap compared to really almost anywhere else livable in the world. But I'm not going to say that makes it a great investment. It's an investment more for me and myself, and I want to be there. And I think people should really look at kind of categorizing certain things for what they are. I think too many people, they want to make the house they live in into a great investment and Airbnb it when they're there. Like you become confused what your purpose. Like have one thing, one purpose. One bank account, one purpose. This bank account earns 8% yield in Cambodia, and I have free cash. I don't need to spend it for a year. Leave it there. It's a Malaysian bank. It's safe, 8%. Over here, you have a bank account that pays the bills. Like, stop conflating, right? If you live in Latin America, that's all I would have in almost all those countries is a bank account that pays the bills. People think, oh, I'm moving to Ecuador. I got $1 million. What bank should I put? You don't put it in Ecuador.
No.
You put it in Singapore. Or you live it in the US. Each thing serves one, or maybe a couple, but not all purposes.
That is an excellent point, and you're right. I think that's where people need to really change their mindset about that. It doesn't all have to be the traditional lifestyle that we're used to in the United States. You don't, or Canada, or wherever. You just don't need to bring that lifestyle with you and have it exactly the same when you move to a new country. It does not have to be a one size fits all, and you're going to have your dream life there.
Go where you're treated best. Those are the 5 magic words. As I get older, I certainly, and I think I always had I think I'm a sentimental person in some ways, but I don't let sentimentality and nostalgia get in the way. I think I've done an excellent job of, not the place that I went when I was 12 years old for hamburgers after school. Like I don't pine away for that. I understand like we're emotional creatures. We want to be happy. I think a lot of people who are not happy in the United States will be happy somewhere else. I think there's a lot of negativity. A lot of people are at each other's throats, whether it's if you're single in the dating world and in the political world. I mean, you can leave that environment and there's plenty of places where like nobody cares and you're going to be a lot happier. If we look at that and we say, go where you're treated best, what is it that you're getting there? You don't have the safest banks. You don't have the best passport. You don't have the safest country. And so I would make a hit list of what are the things that frustrate me most and figure out how to solve those. And so for a lot of Americans, Canadians, et cetera, that's the first step you can take. Whether you don't have a lot of money, you can go to Ecuador, you can go to Albania where you're at. I think they have a couple accounts we work with that you can open with almost nothing. Georgia's another one. They become fewer by the year. Like Armenia doesn't really want foreigners anymore unless you live there. Those banks, you put in like $1 and you have an account and you build a tunnel and you can always, if you wanted to send $100,000 in later or $1 million in later, you might have to call the bank first, but you could do that. And that's one step you can do to start to protect yourself. All the way up to what I would call plan A, which is I'm going to move, I'm going to lower my taxes, I'm going to meet the love of my life from another culture, I'm going to find a new business opportunity, whatever. And I think people should kind of see where on that spectrum of plan B versus plan A they are based on looking at kind of the measures of what is it that frustrates me about where we live What are the things that I'm not getting? What are the things that I wish were better? Banking and access to money and all that kind of stuff is one issue for a lot of folks. People can't afford their bills. I mean, we work with high net worth clients, but obviously, I mean, you can't afford to live. I mean, there's more people than ever moving down to Latin America, just for affordability. So make a list of those frustrations and realize like your country's not best at probably anything. I just think that putting the stuff that causes you problems in the rear view mirror is the fastest way to solve it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Life's too short.
A lot happier. Exactly. Life is too short. That's kind of what we realized when
Mhm.
I had my spine issues and almost died. And we just, after my year of recovery, we just said it's just not worth it. The American dream is killing us. And that's when we decided to just sell everything and leave. And
Yep.
it was the best decision we could have made.
I remember when I did it, I kind of I deluded myself. I knew I wouldn't come back, but I said, all right, I'll try it for a year. And I'm like, all right, don't sell the house yet. Put some stuff in storage. You could do that. And if you hate it, you can come back after a year. And by the way, I mean, there were places where I didn't feel good. I mean, I think for me, I like the scatter approach of I would go to a region. I spent a month in each of these places. You could do whatever it is you want in those places, and you could see where you feel comfortable. I mean, Kuala Lumpur to me, I guess I like being a bit of a contrarian. It's not really a brand name, Kuala Lumpur. People don't talk about it that much. Bangkok and Thailand, they do talk about much more. I just didn't feel as good in Bangkok. I spent a month there and I just never felt good. How I feel is irrelevant to anybody else. I have great friends who live in Bangkok and they love it. And they kind of think KL is like provincial and they have all their friends are Thai and they speak Thai, one of them or two of them does. And so it's like for them, it works perfectly. I think you want to focus on if you go to enough places, how do you feel in each one? I mean, you're in Tirana, Albania. I've been to all those countries. I guess I felt something in Belgrade to where I ultimately got a home. You only know that by saying, I'm going to go to every country in Central and Eastern Europe and spend a month in each.
So, what's the best way to follow you or get in touch with you, work with you? Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, no, you guys are coming to our annual event. It's Nomad Capitalist
We're
Live.
excited.
Yeah.
We're excited about that.
This year.
I think it's going to be great. We've got so every year I do this now, where it's 4 days of where we decide to curate everyone I think you need to learn from. So it's basically opportunities, challenges, and action on everything that you need to know to become a nomad capitalist and live this lifestyle. We talk about passport programs. We don't talk about that often. We talk about more complicated tax setups that you can do, and we clear up misconceptions. So it's all the kind of passport, residence, tax planning. We're doing more asset protection stuff. I have like 6 or 7 frontier market experts from different parts of the world. I mean, from Africa to Uzbekistan to Indonesia to Latin America. If you want to learn about investments, we're going to be talking about, very affordable real estate deals, buying even condos in Albania or Ecuador. I mean, you can get something for 50 grand or less, even in Albania. And so it's a very diverse group of people from all around the world who come. Nigel Farage was Mr. Brexit. We have the CEO of AirAsia, which is an incredible success story. Just a lot of great names, as well as our team, who's going to tell you how we hire in all these countries and what are the challenges. And Haptia wants to talk about the book, The Culture Map, which is like my #1 favorite, most recommended book of the last, 5 years. And she'll talk about that. So it's kind of like, here's what we're doing. Here's kind of a data dump of our research, but it may be a good first step for a lot of people is to come to the event. It's in Kuala Lumpur. It's an incredibly affordable place to go. It's incredibly open, welcoming. It's worth the flight. And that's coming up this September. So they can go to nomadcapitalist.com/live. It's a ton of fun. Looking forward to having you. And it's you get to meet people from 40 or 50 countries. I always said, like, okay, I'm having an event. I need to provide tons of value. So it's Wednesday night. It's like Thursday for like 15 hours. It's Friday for like 8 or 9 hours. And then Saturday is I don't know, it's with the Q&A, it's like another 7, 8 hours. So it's like a lot of stuff. I mean, people they always say my mind is exploding. And I always figure like I like to over deliver. I think it's incredibly valuable. I'm really passionate about it. And I think it's worth coming to.
Thank you so much for the time and talking to our audience. I know a lot of our viewers, if I go to our who do our viewers watch, you are consistently at the top of the other channel that our viewers like. So this is a really good fit for our audience.
Yeah, and we've
You're very
learned a
kind.
lot. It's exciting. I'm feeling very inspired and
Yeah.
motivated.
Well, I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you so much.